The morning sun was just coming up over Cedar Ridge when the shouts began. Sarah McKenna heard the angry voices from her small cabin behind the schoolhouse. She put down her coffee cup and walked to the window. A crowd was gathering in the town square. Men were waving their fists in the air and shouting words. She could not quite hear from this distance. Sarah grabbed her shawl and hurried outside. The October air was cold against her face. As she got closer to the crowd, she could see what was happening. In the center of all the angry men stood a young native girl. Sarah knew her. It was Ayana, the daughter of Chief Standing Bear. The girl looked scared and confused. "She stole from us," shouted Mayor Harrison. His face was red with anger. "We found grain from our storehouse in her basket." The men around him nodded and made angry sounds. Some of them had guns. Sarah pushed through the crowd until she was close enough to see Ayana clearly. The girl was only 17 years old. Tears were running down her face. Her hands were shaking as she held an empty basket. "I did not take anything," Ayana said. In broken English, "I was picking berries in the woods." "Liar!" someone from the crowd yelled. "We all know you people steal from us." Sarah felt her heart beating fast. She had taught some of the native children, including Ayana. The girl was honest and kind. Sarah knew she would never steal anything. But she also knew something else. Yesterday evening she had seen someone near the storehouse. It was not Ayana. It was William Harrison. The mayor's son. Sarah had been walking home from the school when she saw William coming out of the storehouse with a bag over his shoulder. He looked around to make sure no one was watching. But Sarah had been in the shadows between two buildings. William did not see her. She watched him load the bag onto his horse and ride toward the next town. Now, William was standing next to his father in the crowd. He was nodding his head and looking angry, just like everyone else. But Sarah noticed that he would not look at Ayana. His eyes kept moving away from her face. "What punishment do you want?" asked Judge Crawford. He was the head of the town council. The judge was an old man with white hair and a mean look in his eyes. He did not like the native people. Everyone knew this. 20 lashes, said Mayor Harrison. "That will teach her and her people not to steal from us again." The crowd cheered. Sarah felt sick to her stomach. 20 lashes could kill a young girl. Like Ayana. The whip they used was made of thick leather with metal pieces tied to the ends. She had seen what it could do to a grown man. "Please," Sarah said, stepping forward. "Let me speak." The crowd turned to look at her. Some of the men frowned. Women were not supposed to speak at town meetings. But Sarah was the school teacher, and most people respected her. "What do you want to say, Miss McKenna?" asked Judge Crawford. "I do not think this girl stole anything," Sarah said. Her voice was clear and strong, even though her hands were shaking. "Ayana is a good person. I have taught her. She would not steal. You are just soft on these people," said Mayor Harrison. "We found the grain in her basket. What more proof do we need?" "Did anyone see her take the grain?" Sarah asked. The men looked at each other. No one spoke up. "Did anyone see her near the storehouse?" Sarah continued. Again, no one answered. "Then how do you know she took it?" Sarah asked. "Maybe someone put the grain in her basket to make her look guilty." "That is crazy talk," said the mayor. "Why would anyone do that?" Sarah looked at William Harrison. He was staring at the ground now. His face was pale. "Maybe I should tell you what I saw yesterday evening," Sarah said. William's head snapped up. For just a moment, his eyes met Sarah's. She saw fear in them. Then he looked away again. "What did you see?" asked Judge Crawford. "I saw someone coming out of the storehouse with a bag," Sarah said. "It was after dark. This person loaded the bag onto a horse and rode away. Who was it?" Several men asked at the same time. Sarah looked at William again. She could see that he was very scared now. Sweat was running down his face even though the morning was cold. "It was," Sarah began. "Wait." William Harrison stepped forward. "You could not have seen anything clearly in the dark. You are just making this up to save the Indian girl." His father nodded. "My son is right. You cannot trust what a woman thinks she saw in the dark," the crowd agreed. Sarah felt her anger growing. These men would not listen to her because she was a woman. They would rather believe that Ayanna was a thief than listen to the truth. I know what I saw, Sarah said firmly. Prove it, said Mayor Harrison. Do you have any witnesses? Did anyone else see this mystery person? Sarah looked around the crowd. There were no witnesses. She had been alone when she saw William steal. The grain. I thought not, said the mayor. Judge Crawford, I think we have wasted enough time. The girl is guilty. She should be punished, Judge Crawford nodded. I agree. 20 lashes will be given to the Indian girl at noon today. Ayanna cried out in her own language. Sarah did not understand the words, but she could hear the terror in the girl's voice. This is not right, Sarah said loudly. You are going to hurt an innocent person. The decision is made, said Judge Crawford. If you do not like it, you can leave. Sarah looked at Ayanna. The girl was so young and so scared. 20 lashes would destroy her. She might not survive. And even if she did, she would carry the scars for the rest of her life. Sarah thought about her 5 brothers. They were all soldiers in the territorial militia. They had taught her to stand up for what was right, no matter what the cost. They had taught her that sometimes one person had to be brave to protect others. The crowd was starting to break up. Some men were going to get the whipping post ready. Others were talking about who would do the whipping. Sarah knew she had to act fast. Wait. She called out. Everyone stopped and turned to look at her. Sarah's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears, but her voice was steady when she spoke. If someone must be punished, then let it be me instead of her. The crowd went completely silent. Even Judge Crawford looked shocked. What did you say? Asked Mayor Harrison. I said I will take her punishment, Sarah repeated. 20 lashes. Give them to me instead of to Ayanna. The men stared at her like she was crazy. No white person had ever volunteered to take a punishment meant for a native person. You cannot do that, said Judge Crawford. Why not? Sarah asked. You want someone to be punished. You want to send a message. Punishing me will send the same message. But you are not guilty, said someone from the crowd. Neither is she, Sarah replied, looking at Ayanna. The girl was staring at Sarah with wide eyes. She could not believe what she was hearing. This is foolish, said Mayor Harrison. We will not whip a white woman for an Indian's crime. Then you admit it is wrong to whip anyone without proof, Sarah said. The mayor's face turned red again. He had trapped himself with his own words. Sarah took a step closer to Ayanna. The girl was trembling like a leaf in the wind. I will not let you hurt her, Sarah said to the crowd. If you want blood, take mine instead. The crowd stood in shocked silence. No one moved. No one spoke. Sarah McKenna had just offered to take 20 lashes to save a native girl she barely knew. The men could not believe what they had heard. Judge Crawford was the first to find his voice. Miss McKenna, you do not know what you are saying. 20 lashes will tear the skin off your back. It could kill you. I know exactly what I am saying, Sarah replied. Her voice did not shake, but inside she was terrified. She had seen men whipped before. She knew what the leather strips could do to human flesh. Mayor Harrison stepped forward. This is madness. We will not whip the schoolteacher. Why not? Sarah asked. You were ready to whip her. She pointed at Ayanna, who was still crying silently. That is different, said the mayor. She is she is not one of us. So you admit that your justice is not equal for all people, Sarah said. You admit that you treat some people worse than others. The mayor's mouth opened and closed like a fish. He could not answer without admitting that the town was unfair to native people. Sarah looked around the crowd. She could see her neighbors, people she had known for years. Some looked ashamed. Others looked angry. A few looked confused. Waiting for your answer, Sarah said to Judge Crawford. Will you accept my offer or not? The judge whispered something to Mayor Harrison. They talked quietly for a few minutes. Sarah could not hear what they were saying, but she could see that. They were arguing. Finally, Judge Crawford spoke. The town council will meet quickly to discuss this unusual situation. The 5 men who made up the council moved away from the crowd. They stood in a circle and talked in low voices. Sarah could see them pointing at her and at Ayanna. Some were shaking their heads. Others were nodding. While they talked, Sarah felt a small hand touch her arm. She looked down and saw Ayanna standing next to her. The girl's eyes were full of tears. "Why?" Ayanna whispered. "Why would you do this for me?" Sarah smiled softly. "Because it is the right thing to do. But you will be hurt. Maybe you will die." "Maybe," Sarah said. "But I will not let them hurt you for something you did not do." Ayanna began to cry harder. "You are very brave." "No," Sarah said. "I am very scared. But sometimes being scared does not matter." The council finished their meeting. Judge Crawford walked back to where Sarah was standing. "We have made a decision," he said. "If you truly want to take this punishment, we will allow it. But we will reduce it to 10 lashes instead of 20. Sarah felt relief wash over her. 10 lashes were still terrible, but she might survive them. "I accept." "No," Ayanna grabbed Sarah's arm. "Please do not do this. I will take the punishment. It is not your fault." Sarah gently removed Ayanna's hand from her arm. "It is decided." The crowd began to move toward the town square. Some men went to get the whipping post. Others brought rope and the terrible leather whip. Sarah watched them prepare everything. Her mouth was dry and her hands were shaking now. She looked up at the hills around the town. Somewhere up there, her 5 brothers were doing their military duties. Michael, Thomas, Patrick, Sean, and Daniel McKenna were all soldiers in the territorial militia. They protected the town and the surrounding area from bandits and hostile tribes. Sarah wished her brothers were here now. But even if they were, they could not help her. Military men were not allowed to interfere with civilian law. They would have to watch just like everyone else. "Are you ready?" asked Judge Crawford. Sarah nodded, even though she was not ready at all. How could anyone be ready for this? 2 men led her to the whipping post. It was a tall piece of wood stuck deep in the ground. There were rope marks on it from previous punishments. Sarah tried not to think about the pain that other people had felt while tied to this same post. "You need to remove your dress," said one of the men. "The whip will not work through thick cloth." Sarah's face turned red. She had not thought about this. She would have to be half naked in front of the whole town. "I will not remove my dress," she said firmly. The man shrugged. "Then the whip will tear it off you anyway." Another man brought a thin cloth shirt. "You can wear this if you want. It will not protect you, but it will cover you." Sarah took the shirt and walked behind a nearby building to change. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely unbutton her dress. When she came back wearing only the thin shirt, she felt exposed and vulnerable. The men tied her hands to the post above her head. The rope was rough against her skin. She could smell the wood and feel splinters pressing into her arms. Behind her, she heard the crowd gathering. Someone was talking about who would do the whipping. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to think of something else. She thought about her students. She thought about the children she taught every day, both white and native. She thought about how maybe this would help those children live in a better world. 10 lashes, Judge Crawford announced to the crowd. "Let this be a lesson to everyone." Sarah heard footsteps behind her. The man with the whip was getting into position. She gripped the rope around her wrists and held her breath. "Wait, someone." Call from the crowd. Sarah opened her eyes and turned her head. She could see 5 horses riding fast toward the town square. Her heart jumped. She knew those horses. She knew those riders. Her brothers had returned from patrol. Michael McKenna was in the front, leading the other 4. Even from a distance, Sarah could see the shock on their faces. They could see their sister tied to the whipping post, wearing almost nothing, about to be beaten. The 5 brothers jumped off their horses and pushed through the crowd. Michael reached Sarah first. "What is happening here?" he demanded. His voice was loud and angry. Judge Crawford stepped forward. "Your sister volunteered to take punishment for a thieving Indian girl. We tried to talk her out of it." "Untie her." "Right now," said Thomas McKenna. He was the second oldest brother. "We cannot do that," said Judge Crawford. "She accepted the punishment legally. The law says we must carry it out." Michael looked at his sister. Sarah could see the pain in his eyes. "Sarah, why did you do this?" "Because the girl is innocent," Sarah said. "And because no one else would stand up for her." Patrick McKenna, the middle brother, stepped closer to the post. "Who says she is innocent?" "I do," Sarah replied. "I saw who really stole the grain." It was William Harrison. All 5 brothers turned to look at William. The young man had gone completely pale. He looked like he might throw up. "Is that true?" Michael asked William directly. William could not speak. He just stared at the ground. "Answer me." Michael shouted, I. William stammered. His father, Mayor Harrison, grabbed his son's arm. "Do not say anything, William. These people are trying to trick you." But Sean McKenna, the second youngest brother, had caught something in William's expression. "You did it, didn't you? You stole the grain and let this girl take the blame." "That is enough," said Judge Crawford. "We are not here to retry the case. The punishment will be carried out." Daniel McKenna, the youngest brother, stepped forward. He was only 19, but he was already a fierce soldier. "If you hurt our sister, you will answer to us?" "You are military men," said Judge Crawford. "You cannot interfere with civilian justice. You know the rules." The 5 brothers looked at each other. Sarah could see the frustration and anger in their faces. They wanted to help her, but their military oath prevented them from acting. "I am sorry, Sarah," Michael said quietly. "We cannot stop this." "I know," Sarah replied. "Just remember what I am doing and why," Michael nodded. Then he did something surprising. He stepped back and stood at attention like a soldier honoring a fallen comrade. One by one, his 4 brothers did the same thing. The crowd watched in confusion as the 5 McKenna brothers stood at military attention, honoring their sister's sacrifice. "Begin the punishment," ordered Judge Crawford. Sarah gripped the rope tighter and closed her eyes. She thought about Ayanna, safe in the crowd behind her. She thought about her students and the lessons they would learn from this day. The first lash fell across her back. Like a line of fire. Sarah bit her lip to keep from screaming. The pain was worse than anything she had ever felt, but she did not cry out. The second lash crossed the first one, making an X of agony on her back. This time, Sarah could not stop a small sound from escaping her lips. Behind her, she heard Ayanna sobbing. By the 5th lash, Sarah's thin shirt was torn and bloody. By the 8th lash, she could barely hold herself up. Her brothers never moved from their position, but she could hear them breathing hard, fighting not to interfere. The 9th lash brought darkness to the edges of Sarah's vision. She was losing consciousness. The 10th and final lash fell. Sarah collapsed against the ropes, her body no longer able to support itself. The crowd was completely silent. Even the men who had demanded punishment looked sick at what they had witnessed. Ayanna ran forward and knelt beside the whipping post, crying over the blood that had dripped into the dirt. Dr. Matthews cut the ropes that held Sarah to the whipping post. She fell forward into Michael's arms like a broken doll. Her back was a mess of torn skin and blood. The thin shirt she had worn was now just strips of bloody cloth. "Get her to my office immediately," Dr. Matthews said. His face was grim. He had seen many whippings, but never one done to a woman who was trying to protect someone else. Michael lifted his sister carefully. Sarah's head fell back and her eyes were closed. She was unconscious from the pain. Blood dripped from her back as Michael carried her through the crowd. The 5 brothers moved together like a unit of soldiers. Thomas and Patrick cleared a path through the crowd. Sean and Daniel watched for anyone who might try to cause more trouble. Michael carried Sarah as gently as he could. Behind them, Ayanna followed, still crying. She had never seen such cruelty. She had never seen such kindness, either. This white woman had taken terrible punishment to save her, a native girl that most white people saw as less than human. Dr. Matthews had his medical office above the general store. It was a small room with a bed, some chairs, and shelves full of bottles and medical tools. Michael laid Sarah face down on the bed. Her back looked even worse in the light from the window. All of you need to leave, Dr. Matthews said to the brothers. I have work to do. We are not leaving her, Michael said firmly. You cannot stay while I treat her wounds, the doctor replied. It would not be proper. Then Ayanna will stay, said Thomas. Sarah saved her life. She has the right to help care for her. Ayanna looked surprised. White men never ask Native people to help with anything important. Can you help me? Dr. Matthews asked Ayanna. I will need someone to hold the bandages and help me clean the wounds, Ayanna nodded. I will do anything to help her. The 5 brothers left the medical office, but they did not go far. They stood outside the building, talking in angry whispers. People walking by could see the fury in their faces. We need to find out the truth, Michael said. Sarah said she saw William Harrison steal that grain. Where would he take stolen grain? Asked Patrick. Sean thought for a moment. Millerville. It is the closest town. He could sell it there and no one would know where it came from. That is a day's ride from here, said Daniel. If William took grain there yesterday, people might remember him. Thomas nodded. 2 of us should ride to Millerville. The other 3 should stay here and look for more evidence. I will go to Millerville, said Michael. Patrick, you come with me. Thomas, you and Sean and Daniel search this town. Look for anything that proves William stole that grain. The brothers separated. Michael and Patrick got fresh horses and rode hard toward Millerville. The other 3 brothers began their investigation in Cedar Ridge, inside the medical office. Dr. Matthews worked on Sarah's wounds. He cleaned each cut carefully with whiskey. The alcohol burned terribly, and even though Sarah was unconscious, her body jerked with pain. Ayanna held Sarah's hand and spoke to her in the Lakota language. She told Sarah that she was brave. She told her that her sacrifice would not be forgotten. What is she saying? Dr. Matthews asked as he worked. She is telling Sarah that she is a warrior, Ayanna said in English. In my language, there is no higher honor. Dr. Matthews had to use many stitches to close the worst cuts. Each stitch made him angrier. He had always thought the town's treatment of Native people was wrong. Now he had seen how far that hatred could go. This should not have happened, he said as he worked. That girl should not have been punished at all. Sarah knew that, Ayanna replied. That is why she took my place. She could have died, said Dr. Matthews. Yes, Ayanna agreed. She was willing to die for me. I will never forget this. Outside, Thomas McKenna was searching the area around the storehouse. He was looking for any evidence that someone had been there recently. Behind the building, he found horse tracks in the mud. The tracks were from yesterday, when the ground was softer from rain. Thomas was a good tracker. He could tell from the tracks that a horse had been tied behind the storehouse for some time. Then the horse had left quickly, carrying a heavy load. Sean and Daniel were asking questions around town. They talked to people who lived near the storehouse. They talked to people who had seen William Harrison yesterday evening. I saw William riding out of town just after dark, said Mrs. Cupper, who lived near the edge of town. He was riding fast, like he was in a hurry. Did you see what he was carrying? Daniel asked. He had something tied to his saddle, Mrs. Cooper replied, a bag of some kind. I thought it was strange because William never goes anywhere at night. Sean and Daniel looked at each other. This was exactly what Sarah had seen. Did you see him come back? Sean asked. Yes, said Mrs. Cooper. He came back very late, maybe around midnight. But he did not have the bag anymore. Meanwhile, Michael and Patrick were riding hard toward Millerville. They had to find out if William had sold grain there. If they could prove it, they could save Ayanna and clear Sarah's name. The ride took them through hills and forests. Both men were excellent riders, and their horses were strong. They made good time, but they were worried about Sarah. When they left, she had still been unconscious. They reached Millerville just as the sun was setting. It was a smaller town than Cedar Ridge, with only a few stores and a small hotel. Michael and Patrick went straight to the grain dealer's shop. We are looking for information about someone who might have sold grain here yesterday, Michael told the shopkeeper. Are you the law? The shopkeeper asked. We are military men, Patrick replied. We are investigating a crime. The shopkeeper nodded. What kind of grain? Wheat and corn, probably, Michael said. A young man would have brought it, probably. In the evening. Oh yes, the shopkeeper said immediately. Young fellow, maybe 20 years old, light hair, expensive clothes? Michael and Patrick exchanged glances. That sounded like William Harrison. That could be him, Michael said. What did he tell you? Said his family had extra grain from a good harvest, the shopkeeper replied. Wanted to sell it for cash instead of storing it. I thought it was odd because most people wait until spring to sell grain when prices are higher. How much grain did he have? Patrick asked. 3 bags. Good quality wheat and corn. I paid him $12 for it. Michael felt his anger growing. Sarah had been whipped for grain that William sold for $12. Did he say anything else? Patrick asked. He was nervous, the shopkeeper said. Kept looking over his shoulder like he was afraid someone was following him. And he wanted to be paid in cash, not credit. Most people are happy to take credit. This was all the proof they needed. Michael and Patrick thanked the shopkeeper and started the long ride back to Cedar Ridge. Back in Cedar Ridge, Thomas was still investigating. He had found more evidence behind the storehouse. There were grains of wheat and corn scattered on the ground. Someone had been loading grain here recently. Thomas also found something else, a button from an expensive coat. It was the kind of button that rich people used on their good clothes. William Harrison always wore expensive clothes. Daniel and Sean had talked to more people around town. They had found 3 more witnesses who had seen William leaving town with a heavy bag. One person had even seen him near the storehouse earlier in the evening. All the evidence pointed to the same conclusion. William Harrison had stolen the grain. He had sold it in Millerville for cash. And he had let an innocent native girl take the blame for his crime. As night fell, the 3 brothers met at Dr. Matthews' office to check on Sarah. She was awake now, but very weak. Her back was covered in bandages and she could barely move. How do you feel? Thomas asked quietly. Like I was hit by a wagon, Sarah said with a weak smile. But I would do it again. Ayanna was sitting beside the bed. She had not left Sarah's side all day. We are finding evidence, Sean told Sarah. Evidence that proves William Harrison stole that grain. Good, Sarah whispered. But what matters most is that Ayanna is safe. Dr. Matthews came over to check on his patient. She needs to rest for several days, he told the brothers. Those wounds could become infected if she moves around. Too much. I will stay with her, Ayanna said. I will take care of her like she took care of me. Thomas nodded. We will be back tomorrow with Michael and Patrick. By then, we should have all the proof we need. Late that night, Michael and Patrick returned from Millerville. They were tired from the long ride, but they were excited about what they had learned. The 5 brothers met in Thomas's room at the hotel. They shared all the evidence they had gathered. The horse tracks, the scattered grain, the button, the witnesses, and the shopkeeper's story all told the same tale. William Harrison is guilty, Michael said. We can prove it. What do we do now? Daniel asked. Michael looked at his 4 brothers. They all had the same angry, determined look on their faces. Tomorrow morning we confront him, Michael said. We make him confess in front of the whole town, and if he refuses? Sean asked. Michael's eyes were hard as stone. Then we make him confess anyway. Sarah paid for his crime with her blood. Now it is time for him to pay for what he did. The 5 brothers spent the rest of the night preparing. By dawn, they would be ready to get justice for their sister and for Ayanna. William Harrison's lies were about to catch up with him. The sun was just rising over Cedar Ridge when the 5 McKenna brothers rode into town. They wore their full military uniforms with polished buttons and clean boots. Their horses moved together in perfect formation like soldiers going into battle. People on the streets stopped to watch them pass. The brothers looked serious and determined. Everyone in town had heard about what happened to their sister. Some people felt ashamed. Others were curious about what the brothers would do. The 5 men rode straight to the Harrison house. It was the biggest house in town, with white walls and a large front porch. Mayor Harrison was rich from his businesses and his position in the town government. Michael McKenna dismounted first. His 4 brothers followed. They walked up to the front door in a line, with Michael in the lead. Their boots made loud sounds on the wooden porch. Michael knocked on the door. Hard. Mayor Harrison answered the door himself. When he saw the 5 brothers in their uniforms, his face went pale. "Good morning, Mayor," Michael said. His voice was polite, but there was steel in it. "We need to speak with your son William." "My son is not available," Mayor Harrison replied. He tried to close the door, but Patrick McKenna put his boot in the way. "This is not a request," Patrick said quietly. "We need to speak with William right now." "You have no authority here," the mayor said. "You are military men. This is civilian business. Yesterday you made it our business," Thomas said. "When you let our sister take a whipping for a crime she did not commit." Mayor Harrison looked nervous. "Your sister volunteered for that punishment." "No one forced her." "Because she knew the truth," Sean said. "She knew William stole that grain." "That is a lie." The mayor shouted, "My son is not a thief." From inside the house they heard footsteps on the stairs. A young man's voice called out, "Father, who is at the door?" William Harrison appeared behind his father. When he saw the 5 brothers, he stopped moving. The color drained from his face completely. "Hello, William," Michael said calmly. "We need to talk to you." I have nothing to say," William stammered. "We think you do," Daniel said. He was the youngest brother, but his voice was hard as iron. "We think you have a lot to say." Mayor Harrison tried to protect his son. "You cannot come into my house and threaten us." "We are not threatening anyone," Michael replied. "We just want to hear the truth." "The truth was decided yesterday," the mayor said. "The Indian girl was guilty. She was punished." "No," Thomas said. "Our sister was punished. An innocent woman took 10 lashes because your son is a coward and a thief." William made a small sound like a hurt animal. His father grabbed his arm. "Do not say anything, William," Mayor Harrison warned. "These men are trying to trick you." But Sean McKenna pulled out a small object from his pocket. It was the button they had found behind the storehouse. "Do you recognize this, William?" Sean asked. William stared at the button. His mouth opened, but no words came out. "It is from your good coat," Sean continued. "The coat you were wearing when you stole the grain 2 nights ago." "That could be anyone's button," Mayor Harrison said quickly. Patrick stepped forward. "We also talked to Mrs. Cooper. She saw William leaving town that night with a bag. She saw him come back without it. And we talked to the grain dealer in Millerville," Michael added. "He remembers William very well. Young man, nervous, sold 3 bags of grain for $12 cash." William started shaking. He looked like he might collapse. "That proves nothing," Mayor Harrison said, but his voice was weaker now. "It proves everything," Daniel said. "Your son stole grain from the storehouse. He rode to Millerville and sold it. Then he let an innocent girl be blamed for his crime. And he let our sister be whipped for it," Thomas added, his anger finally showing in his voice. William could not take it anymore. He pushed past his father and ran out of the house. The brothers followed him. William ran toward the town square. But he was not a soldier. The McKenna brothers caught him easily. By now, a crowd was gathering. People came out of their houses and shops to see what was happening. Word spread quickly that the McKenna brothers had evidence about the grain theft. Michael grabbed William's arm and stopped him from running. "You need to tell these people the truth," he said. "I cannot," William cried. "They will hate me." "They should hate you," Sean said. "You are a coward and a thief." Judge Crawford appeared in the crowd. "What is going on here?" he demanded. "We have proof that William Harrison stole the grain," Michael announced loudly, so everyone could hear. "We have witnesses, we have physical evidence, and we have the testimony of the man who bought the grain from him." Judge Crawford looked confused. "That is impossible. We already punished the guilty person." "You punished an innocent girl," Patrick said, "and you let our sister take her place." "Show them the evidence," Thomas said. Michael pulled out a letter from his coat. This is a signed statement from the grain dealer in Millerville. He describes William Harrison perfectly. He even describes the clothes William was wearing. Sean held up the button again. This came from William's coat. We found it behind the storehouse where he loaded the stolen grain. Daniel pointed to several people in the crowd. Mrs. Cooper saw William leaving town with a heavy bag. So did Mr. Jenkins and Mrs. Rodriguez. They all saw him the night the grain was stolen. The crowd was murmuring now. People were looking at William with suspicious eyes. Is this true, William? Judge Crawford asked. William looked around at all the faces staring at him. His father was trying to push through the crowd to reach him, but people were blocking his way. William started, then stopped. Tell them, Michael said firmly. Tell them what you did. William's shoulders sagged. He looked defeated. I needed money, he said quietly. Speak louder, Sean demanded. Let everyone hear you. I needed money, William said louder. I had gambling debts in Millerville. Men were threatening to hurt me if I did not pay them. The crowd gasped. Judge Crawford looked shocked. So you stole grain from the town storehouse? The judge asked. I only took a little, William said desperately. I thought no one would notice, but someone did notice, Patrick said. So you let them blame Ayanna? I did not mean for anyone to get hurt, William cried. I thought they would just make her work to pay for the grain or something. You thought they would just make her work? Daniel repeated in disbelief. They wanted to give her 20 lashes. I know, William shouted. I know it was wrong. But I was scared. You were scared? Thomas asked. So you let our sister take 10 lashes with a whip to save your skin? William started crying. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. The crowd was angry now. People were shouting at William. Some were calling him a coward. Others were calling him worse names. Judge Crawford raised his hand. For quiet, this is a very serious matter, he said. If William Harrison really stole the grain, then we punished the wrong person. We know we punished the wrong person, Michael said. The question is, what are you going to do about it? William must be arrested and tried for theft, the judge said. What about Ayanna? Sean asked. What about our sister? Judge Crawford looked uncomfortable. Well, the punishment has already been carried out. That is not good enough, Daniel said. At that moment, something happened that no one expected. Michael McKenna, the leader of the 5 brothers, dropped to one knee in the middle of the town square. He knelt like a soldier honoring a fallen comrade. One by one, his 4 brothers did the same thing. Thomas knelt, then Patrick, then Sean, then Daniel. All 5 McKenna brothers were kneeling in the dirt of the town square. The crowd went completely silent. No one had ever seen anything like this before. We kneel for our sister, Michael said in a voice that carried to every person in the square. We kneel for Sarah McKenna, who took punishment meant for an innocent person. We kneel for justice, Thomas added. We kneel for truth, Patrick said. We kneel for courage, Sean continued. We kneel for honor, Daniel finished. The 5 brothers stayed on their knees. The crowd watched in amazement. These were respected soldiers, war heroes, kneeling in the dirt for their sister and for a native girl. Judge Crawford was sweating. Now, please, get up. We can discuss this. We will not get up until you do what is right, Michael said firmly. What do you want? The judge asked. We want a public apology to Ayanna, Michael said. We want her name cleared completely. We want a public apology to our sister, Thomas added. We want William Harrison to pay for what he stole and to make up for the harm he caused, Patrick continued. And we want new rules, Sean said. Rules that say no one can be punished without real proof. Rules that treat all people fairly, no matter what color their skin is, Daniel finished. The crowd was nodding. Many people looked ashamed of what had happened. They could see that the McKenna brothers were right. William Harrison had collapsed on the ground, crying. His father had finally reached him, but even Mayor Harrison looked ashamed now. We will do what you ask, Judge Crawford said finally. William will be tried for theft. Ayanna will receive a public apology. Your sister will receive a public apology. When? Michael asked. Today, the judge replied, this afternoon. In the same square. Only then did the 5 McKenna brothers stand up. They brushed the dirt off their knees and looked at the crowd with satisfaction. Justice will be done, Michael sighed, finally. That afternoon, the whole town gathered in the square again, but this time the feeling was very different. People looked serious and ashamed. They knew they had made a terrible mistake. Sarah McKenna was there, sitting in a chair because she was still too hurt to stand for very long. Her back was covered in bandages under her dress. Ayanna sat beside her, holding her hand. The 5 McKenna brothers stood behind their sister, still wearing their military uniforms. They looked proud and strong. The townspeople could see that. These men would always protect their family and fight for what was right. Judge Crawford stood in front of the crowd. His face was red with shame. We are here today to correct a great wrong, he began. Yesterday we punished an innocent person because we did not look for the truth. William Harrison stood next to his father. His hands were tied behind his back because he was now a prisoner. His face was stained with tears. He had confessed everything to the town council. William Harrison has admitted that he stole grain from the town storehouse, Judge Crawford continued. He sold this grain in Millerville to pay gambling debts. When the theft was discovered, he allowed Ayanna, daughter of Chief Standing Bear, to be blamed for his crime. The crowd murmured angrily. Many people were looking at William with disgust. Because of William's cowardice, the judge said, an innocent girl was going to be severely punished. Sarah McKenna, our schoolteacher, stepped forward to take that punishment herself. She suffered 10 lashes with a whip to protect someone she barely knew. Judge Crawford walked over to where Ayanna was sitting. The young native girl looked nervous. She was not used to having white men speak to her with respect. Ayanna, daughter of Standing Bear, Judge Crawford said formally, on behalf of the town of Cedar Ridge, I apologize for the wrong that was done to you. You are completely innocent of any crime. Your name is cleared of all blame. Ayanna nodded, but she did not speak. In her culture, it was not proper for young women to speak at formal gatherings like this. Then Judge Crawford turned to Sarah. She tried to stand up, but her wounds made it too painful. Michael McKenna helped her to her feet. Sarah McKenna, the judge said, you have shown more courage and honor than anyone in this town. You suffered greatly to protect an innocent person. We are all ashamed that such a sacrifice was necessary. Sarah looked at the judge with clear, steady eyes. I do not regret what I did, she said. I would do it again. The crowd was silent. Everyone could see the strength in this young woman who had endured so much pain for the sake of justice. William Harrison, Judge Crawford called out, step forward. William walked slowly to the front. He could barely lift his head to look at the crowd. For the crime of theft, you are sentenced to 6 months in jail, the judge announced. You will also pay back 3 times the value of what you stole, and you will work for the town without pay for 1 full year after you get out of jail? William nodded. He deserved the punishment, and everyone knew it. There is one more thing, Judge Crawford said. From now on, this town will have new rules. No one will be punished without clear proof of their guilt. All people will be treated equally under the law, regardless of their race or background. The crowd began to applaud. It was not loud applause, but it was real. People were glad to see justice finally done. After the ceremony, something unexpected happened. Chief Standing Bear himself came to town. He rode in with several of his warriors, but they came in peace. The chief was a tall, dignified man with long gray hair and kind eyes. He went straight to where Sarah was sitting. Through an interpreter, he spoke to her. The chief says that you have shown the courage of a warrior, the interpreter explained. He says that from this day forward you are an honorary daughter of the Lakota tribe. You will always be welcome in our villages. Sarah was deeply moved. Please tell the chief that I am honored by his words. Chief Standing Bear smiled and placed a beautiful beaded necklace around Sarah's neck. It was the kind of necklace that Lakota women wore for special ceremonies. The chief was giving her one of the highest honors his people could offer. Then the chief did something even more surprising. He spoke to Judge Crawford through the interpreter. Chief Standing Bear says that his people would like to make peace with the town, the interpreter said. He suggests that we start by having the native children come to school with the white children. Judge Crawford looked nervous. I am not sure the townspeople are ready for that. Michael McKenna stepped forward. I think they are ready, he said firmly. My sister has been teaching some native children already. They are good students. It would be a good way to build understanding between our peoples, Thomas McKenna added. The other brothers nodded in agreement. When the McKenna brothers spoke, people in Cedar Ridge listened. Judge Crawford looked around at the crowd. Many people were nodding. The events of the past 2 days had changed how they thought about the native people. Very well, the judge said. Native children will be welcome at the school. Sarah smiled despite her pain. This was what she had always hoped for. Over the next few weeks, things in Cedar Ridge began to change. Ayana was the first native student to attend the regular school. She was smart and eager to learn. Soon, other native children joined her. Some of the white children were curious about their new classmates. Others were a little scared at first. But Sarah was a good teacher. She helped all the children learn to respect each other. Ayana became Sarah's special helper. She helped translate for the younger native children who did not speak much English yet. She also taught the white children some words in Lakota. The town doctor, Dr. Matthews, was so impressed by Sarah's sacrifice that he asked Ayana's grandmother to teach him about native healing methods. Many of the plants that native people used for medicine worked better than the white man's medicines. Even Mayor Harrison resigned from his job. He was too ashamed of what his son had done to continue as mayor. The town elected a new mayor who promised to treat all people fairly. William Harrison served his 6 months in jail. When he got out, he had to work without pay for the town. He spent his days cleaning the streets, fixing broken buildings, and doing other hard work. It was good for him. The work made him stronger, and the punishment made him think about what he had done. After his year of service was over, William left Cedar Ridge. He moved to California and became a better person. He never forgot the lesson he learned about honesty and courage. The 5 McKenna brothers became even more respected than before. People said that kneeling in the town square was the bravest thing they had ever seen. It showed that real strength sometimes meant humbling yourself for others. Michael McKenna was promoted to captain in the territorial militia. Thomas became a sergeant major. Patrick, Sean, and Daniel all received medals for their service. But they were most proud of their sister and what she had done. Sarah's back healed slowly. The scars never completely went away, but she did not mind them. They reminded her of the day she stood up for what was right. The story of what happened in Cedar Ridge spread to other towns and territories. People talked about the school teacher who took a whipping to save a native girl. They talked about the 5 brothers who knelt in the dirt to demand justice. Writers came to interview Sarah. They wanted to put her story in newspapers and magazines. Artists came to paint pictures of the 5 brothers kneeling in the town square. But Sarah was not interested in fame. She was only interested in teaching her students and building bridges between different peoples. Years passed. Ayana grew up to become a teacher herself. She married a young man from her tribe and had children of her own. She never forgot what Sarah had done for her. Sarah never married. She said her students were her children. She taught in Cedar Ridge for 30 more years. Hundreds of children, both white and native, learned from her. When Sarah was an old woman, the town built a statue in the square where she had been whipped. It showed a woman with her arms stretched out, protecting a child. At the base of the statue were the words, "She stood for justice when no one else would." On the day the statue was unveiled, all 5 McKenna brothers came back to Cedar Ridge. They were old men now, with gray hair and lined faces. But they still stood straight and proud like the soldiers they had always been. Ayana came too, now a grandmother herself. She brought her children and grandchildren to see the statue of the woman who had saved her life. The whole town gathered for the ceremony. Chief Standing Bear's son was there, representing the Lakota people. The current mayor made a speech about courage and sacrifice, but the most important moment came when the 5 McKenna brothers, now old but still strong, knelt once more in front of the statue of their sister. People in the crowd wiped away tears as they remembered that day long ago when 5 warriors knelt for justice. Sarah McKenna had passed away the year before, but her legacy lived on. The school she had built welcomed all children. The town she had changed continued to grow in peace and understanding. And sometimes, when the wind was just right, people said they could still hear her voice in the schoolyard, teaching children that courage means standing up for others, even when it costs you everything. The story became a legend that parents told their children.